So today we're going to be talking about a unfortunate reality of reptile breeding, animal breeding, any type of situation where you're working with breeding animals. There's really unfortunate realities that go with it, and there's a subject of the first baby that I had, I guess you can't even say hatch, in 8 years. But before we get to talking about that, I do want to address the fact that it has been quite some time since I posted on this channel. I don't know how many of you have migrated over at all to see what I do on my BMX YouTube channel, but I post on there literally every single day, and I do so much different stuff on there. And when it warms up, I'm riding as much as I can. There's travel and events and all this other stuff that you probably don't care about. But I got a little bit overwhelmed for a bit, to the point where I didn't have the mental capacity to film or edit anything together for this channel. But rest assured, I have been documenting things. I have a lot of stuff filmed. I just haven't been able to get myself to do this part right here where I talk and bring it all together. But today we are going to do that, because the very first gecko that I had that was supposed to hatch in 8 years, since 2016, ended up being a not viable baby. And as much of a bummer as that was, and it was a huge bummer, it was months ago at this point, and I have since moved past it. And you accept these things, and when you get into this world, there's these sad realities of life that you have to face. And this is not only a sad reality of reptile breeding that you get into by putting yourself in this situation, but it's also a sad reality of life. And it's something that I don't know, I feel like I handle it pretty well, but I have pictures and some video and to tell the story, because this is a thing that if you are thinking about crested gecko breeding or any type of animal breeding for that matter, you're going to probably have to deal with this. And it's not something that a lot of people talk about, because it's probably something that no one wants to even think about. But here I am realizing that I need to do that. But here I am talking about it because I don't even know why, to be honest. I suppose it's because it was the first gecko that didn't hatch, that was supposed to hatch since 8 years ago. But I came home one day to look into the egg container that I have with the incubating medium from the first pairing that I did with my buddy Ryan's red phantom female. And we were splitting the eggs up because it was his female, my male. We were just splitting the eggs up. He keeps one from each clutch and I keep the other. So it was very exciting that we knew we were getting close to hatch time for them. And I came home one day to see this, what you're seeing on the screen right now, which was an egg that was definitely smaller than it had been the day previously. And it was a learning experience for me. And a lot of people say, I don't cut eggs open no matter what. If the gecko can't make it out, well, then that means it wasn't supposed to make it out. There's something wrong. There's something else going on. And so I see this egg that's smaller than it was. It had a little tiny slit in it, and there was something coming out. Couldn't tell what it was, because I haven't hatched eggs in 8 years. And even back then, I only had a few hatch at all anyways. So my lack of experience said oh man, I don't know what to do here. But my experience on the internet said, hey, you have a lot of resources with people who are willing to help gecko breeders that have a lot more experience than you do. So I sent some messages, and the feedback that I got was, some people might cut it at this point. Other people wait until they see the egg starting to sweat and then cut it immediately, basically just trying to give as much time as humanly possible for this egg to hatch on its own. And so here I am freaking out, but I let time go by. I'm like, all right, we're just going to try and do this the right way. And then it got to a point where I was like, all right, I think I see sweat on there. I'm just going to cut it open and see what happens. And what I was greeted with was something that if you can't handle a graphic image of a not viable baby gecko, basically just a dead baby gecko beside of an egg, then click away or don't look or cover the screen or whatever, because I'm going to show it. I'm giving you fair warning at this point, but this is what I saw. And I found a baby gecko that was mostly formed, but then it was weird that it like didn't have one of its eyes formed on it. And immediately I understood something was wrong with this gecko, and that is why it wasn't able to make it out of the egg. And so getting into crested gecko breeding, jumping in headfirst the way I have this year, I understand this, things like this can happen. And it's an unfortunate reality of life and breeding animals, because I'm sure every single type of animal out there that people breed, they have situations where something's not big enough, it's too small, failure to thrive, all of these different possibilities. And so immediately I accepted it. I understood. And it was a massive, massive bummer and way to start off having these geckos that were supposed to hatch, or a gecko that was supposed to hatch, not, and then be dead on arrival in the egg. And it was sad. It was a giant bummer, like I said, but I accepted it. And now where we're sitting, I have 5 eggs incubating at this point, and 7 have hatched so far this year. So the first egg that was due to hatch of mine in 8 years didn't hatch. The baby didn't make it, and it's a sad thing, but I'm happy to report that every single other egg that I have had has been viable, healthy babies. They're all doing well. I've got several of them eating insects, which I can make a video about that as well, because I filmed the process. I just filmed myself giving these baby geckos crickets for the first times, and they have been growing super fast because of it. And it's really fun to watch them progress. And I have some really cool stuff for these videos about these new hatchlings, but I wanted to make this dedicated video here to kind of just start off the conversation about babies and things with something that a lot of people don't want to think about or avoid or don't talk about in general, because there's a lot of people out there, and I see them in Facebook groups every single day asking, like, do you think this would make a good pairing? I'm planning on breeding these. And a lot of times there will be people in those groups who leave comments trying to, give some insight on this stuff. But a lot of times there's no comments, and it's just, yeah, that'll be great. Go for it. And I just thought that it would be somewhat of a good resource for people to see, like, the reality. I keep saying it, the reality of breeding animals. And this is what can happen, and it's probably going to happen. And we don't see a lot of bigger breeders talk about it unless it's something super crazy that was in the egg. I've seen lots of, this was going to be my first axanthic crested gecko, but it wasn't viable, or it didn't make it out of the egg and it drowned in the egg, and super sad. But then there's a lot of people who just never acknowledge it. And I wanted to make sure that, like, if you're watching this and you're considering breeding, or you're new to all of this, this is something you're going to deal with. It's going to happen. You're going to have to get past it, especially if you want to keep doing it. And the only real thing you can make sure to do about this is to make sure that you're giving your females calcium. Make sure that the calcium sacs are looking the way that they should before you do pairings, as well as making sure that you keep your eggs in the right, what's the word I'm looking for? In the right conditions, where you have the proper hatch medium, whether it's the Pangea hatch or whatever those options might be, or it's vermiculite, whatever, making sure that the humidity is proper on that, as well as the temperatures are good. If you make it way too hot and they hatch way too soon, there's probably going to be more likely to be issues there. So on that note, I want to say that it's also not as doom and gloom as it can appear to be at times. I've run into this one issue, but all my other eggs have hatched just fine, and I'm pretty happy to say I made it 10 minutes into the video without having to make a cut. But at this point, I just want to say thank you to everyone who tunes into this. I'm sorry for the delay in things. I will try to be better about this, and hopefully you guys stay tuned for the journey. It's fun to see everything as it develops, and I've got some new things going on, as well as some of these babies that I'm very excited to show you guys. So if you want to stay tuned in for my Crested Gecko breeding journey and me documenting it the best I can, hit the subscribe button down below. And if you want to understand why I don't upload as much, go check out my BMX channel, where I upload every single day and go to events all over the country and post videos from those. With that being said, thanks again, and we'll see you next time for another video.